What's up, everybody? Welcome to IGN Game Scoop. I'm your host, Damon Hadfield. I'm joined today by Greg Miller.
Hi.
Dan Stapleton.
Aloha.
Colin Moriarty.
Yeah.
We've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about video games. Let's first talk about a video game called Watch Dogs.
Oh.
It was released last week. Dan Stapleton reviewed it.
I may have heard of it.
You liked it. You liked it a lot.
I did. I think it's a great game.
You thought it was great. I've been playing it. You guys been playing it?
Yeah, played it for a couple hours, yeah.
So far, I agree with Dan's sentiment. I like it a lot as well. I think it's a lot of fun. Maybe not a revolutionary game.
By no means.
Feels very Assassin's Creed-ish to me. You just have a different set of tools at your disposal to achieve your objectives.
I don't know. I think it's more like GTA in feel than Assassin's Creed, just because Assassin's Creed is so much more parkour based.
Yeah.
And while Aiden can kind of bounce off things, he's not scaling walls.
Sure.
Which is the first thing I tried to do.
Right.
When I jumped in and they explained running, I was like, oh, ran up to it. Nope, okay, sorry, my bad. Yeah.
Now, one of our viewers/listeners, Gareth, has a question for the lads, as he
That's
puts in his subject. But I looked up the definition of lads. It refers to a young man or boy, and so I don't think that's me.
What about man-child?
However, it also it includes anyone who works in a stable, man or woman, regardless on age. So,
So it could refer to you if that's your side job.
if
Do you work in a stable,
I
Nick?
worked in a stable, no.
You smell like you do. Nailed him, Stapleton. Dominated him. He's all like, I'm gonna go! Knocked down.
Gareth says, Watch Dogs was released last week. It's safe to say it was one of the most highly anticipated next-gen games. We're going to be talking about that next-gen, current-gen confusion later on. Based almost squarely around that trailer from E3 2012. Do we have that trailer, Mike, that we can run? When people saw gameplay footage, it not only got people incredibly excited for Watch Dogs, but also the capabilities of next-gen hardware.
There! No, it's like, we're waiting. We got it. Is this the trailer?
That's the trailer.
God, I don't even remember the trailer anymore. It's been so long.
Yeah.
I was hands playing the game, by the way. I like that. I always love that shot.
This is real.
This is really happening.
Yara says, I was sold on the tone and mood of those Chicago streets. Now I own the game, and while it's still fun to play, it looks remarkably different from its original vision, with duller lighting and heavily diminished weather effects. I don't know. I don't know. To what degree, his question is, to what degree is it the publisher's responsibility to present gameplay accurate to its final release? And at what point do changes become dishonest and unacceptable? Was I wrong to believe in the next-gen vision based on this trailer?
I mean, it's a question of what's possible. Like that was an aspirational vertical slice. That's what they wanted to do. Like there's no doubt they wanted to make this game look as good as they possibly could, and probably 2 years ago they thought they could make it look like this. But
I have to say, I don't think this looks that much better than the final product.
yeah, I mean, it's not a stark difference. There's a bunch of subtle stuff that does make a difference.
Vents, right? Is that happening in the final version? I haven't seen that.
Well, the smoke, there is some smoke in there, but it's
not like
it's
that,
nowhere
where
near
it's
like
every
that.
It's essential.
doing
The
that.
smoke is essential.
Yeah, you gotta have that steam coming out of the grates. That's how you know you're in Chicago.
Okay, so sure, I haven't encountered something like this where you walk in,
Right.
to, walk through the mist into
Sure.
a nightclub.
Right, there's nothing like
sure.
all this smoke and everything just is not there.
Sure.
And that's kind of what happens in development. They start high and have to scale back sometimes. And developers don't have a crystal ball. They can't see what sacrifices they're going to have to make to achieve the level of performance they want.
And this is the problem with showing your game so early, right? You want to show what it's going to look, but you're building all those systems at once. You're not going like scene by scene, making this game how it's going to look. Like, okay, we got all the AI, all the people, everything's programmed for this section. Move on to the next one. Right. That's why vertical slices exist, where you come in and make. Here's what we think it's all going to look like. Here's what it would look like, and then everything before and after that is non-existent.
Right. Also, I'm not sure if when they announced it, I don't remember if they had announced it for PS3 and Xbox 360. Had they?
I don't think so. They didn't say any platform.
Everyone assumed that it was next gen, and they couldn't say.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean that could have been before they actually decided to scale it back and put it on those systems, which means they have to kind of develop to the lowest common denominator there, which is unfortunate for people that went out and bought a PS4, an Xbox One, or a high-end PC, expecting it to look as good as it possibly could. And it's kind of a reality of it. I do think that in isolation, if that was the only piece of footage they had put out and said it's going to look like this, then that would have been a real problem, because that would be the only thing you have to go off of to make your purchase. The reality is they never stop putting out footage.
That's true.
Like there's been a lot of footage, there's been a lot of previews out there where you can see what it was you were going to get instead of just relying on this 2-year-old piece of basically concept footage. I think that you do have some responsibility to go out and see, what it is that you're buying before you do it. And if you're looking at just something 2 years old,
sure.
You're probably doing yourself a disservice. Now that doesn't completely exonerate developers from saying this game is going to be awesome. Look at this, and then getting everybody all excited about it, and then having to scale back. That's not something they want to do either.
Right.
Like they don't want you to be disappointed.
It seems like this is part of a growing concern. It's actually related to our second question about the video game hype machine. A concern about whether or not it kicks off too soon. Right? Is 2 years before release too soon, or too far out?
I think it is.
Yes.
And like this is all kind of I think a reaction to Aliens: Colonial Marines, where they had the same thing, where they put out this early footage that looked fantastic, and then it didn't look anything at all like that when it came out.
Well, E3's next week. We're surely going to see games announced that won't be out for 2 years or more. Right?
It seems to me companies are learning their lesson. I mean, making games is hard, right? Like I agree with Dan. Like I kind of got to give Ubisoft the benefit of the doubt that they didn't expect. They're not stupid. They like put footage out and then they know that the game maybe will not look like that, and no one's going to notice. Like this isn't something they have to deal with. Of course they know that. They're a smart company, and so I think that people need to understand game development is hard, and these developers are constantly iterating and trying to get things on the hardware. Like Dan said, like it might have started as a PS4 or Xbox One game, and they had to make concessions to get it on other hardware when they realized, well, we need to sell copies on these last gen consoles too. But I think companies are learning their lesson. Greg and I were talking on Podcast Beyond yesterday about. The Last Guardian is a quintessential example of announcing a game too early. And then you have to live with the embarrassment of that game for years as everyone continues to ask questions about it. It happened again, maybe even with the Order 1886, and that's a great example of a game that looked beautiful, that was running in engine, and then that trailer is excellent. That was last year, but then when I saw the game running, I was like, oof. This isn't ready. This isn't ready. And that's the kind of expectations you set. But then people expect that the game will look like that, and so they have to, like Dan said, kind of educate themselves on these issues or whatever. And Batman, another great example, although I think Greg and I were in agreement that WB knew that game wasn't coming out this year, and that that they announced it. You get some buzz going and use that time.
People pre-ordering, right?
Exactly.
You know why we haven't seen Half-Life 3 yet, right? I mean, it's because Valve learned their lesson with Half-Life 2, where they announced Half-Life 2, I think it was 6 years before it came out, and had to keep delaying it, and people got really mad at them. So they're like, okay, we're just not going to do that anymore. I think 2K is actually doing things really smart right now. If you look at XCOM: Enemy Unknown, they announced that in December. It came out later that year. December of 2012, December 2011. It came out. 2012. Yeah.
They had to learn a lesson with the other XCOM game, the shooter,
right? Which they announced, and then
what was the final version of that?
That was the Bureau XCOM Declassified, which was not a good game. But yeah, so that is a great example. They announced it. It didn't end up coming out in a form that even resembled what it was announced as. So announcing things years before they come out is not necessarily a great idea. A lot of the time, it seems like developers do that for investor relations reasons.
100%. You got to get your stockholders behind you. Make them understand money is coming down the pipeline.
Yep.
And that's the thing we're talking about with Batman, right? They announced that at GDC. They knew they weren't on track to target by the end of the year, but you announced it when Infamous is already out, Watch Dogs is coming up, and then everybody else is like, where are the next-gen games? Next-gen games. I know we're getting to it. Where are the games for this PlayStation 4 and Xbox One? You announce Batman, it's available for pre-order. Everybody's like, oh, awesome, because I have all this money I'm sitting on that I'm not putting into the system yet. I'll do it right now, and then, get them while you can.
But getting back to the hype machine question, I think that a lot of the hype machine is not aimed at the consumers, but at the investors.
So, is that Watch Dogs announcement not really for the gamers?
I think
it's really for the investors and for GameStop?
I think in part, at least, yes.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the hype machine is it's all subjective too, because, a game is announced, we'll write the announcement story, then maybe we'll see it, we'll do a rewind theater, we'll go play it, we'll play a bunch of games at E3. I'm not much of a previews guy. Maybe it's just the way that I digest content on the internet, or especially gaming content, and always have. I don't really read previews. I don't really look for instance, The Witcher 3 is a great example, right? I heard about this game, oh my god, oh dear.
Nope, I'm gonna be okay.
The Witcher 3 was announced. This game sounds great, sounds exactly up my alley. I don't really know anything else about it. I'm like, I'll play it. It's like one of those games, and that's the way I treat,
there with you.
That's the way I treat everything. That's why I like reviewing games and writing news and previewing and doing all these things. It keeps the job kind of fresh. But as far as like digesting this information, it seems like a lot of people want it, and so we give it to them. But then they get mad about the hype machine behind it. But it's like, well, if you're not interested in the hype machine, I guess don't contribute so much to it, and then we'll worry about maybe games that are more out right now that you're playing right this minute. So it's kind of an interesting way of looking at it, which is why I think it's just about how people digest their content more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I don't read a lot of previews. Like, I don't need to watch every trailer for a game. If I'm already excited about a game,
right.
I don't need to watch the new trailer for it. It's
you
like,
want to be surprised.
I'm already excited for it. I saw that Watch Dogs gameplay. I was like, that looks awesome. I'll play that. Yeah. See you in 2 years. And so when I sat down to play it, I didn't even remember the original footage. I was just like, this is fun. This is awesome.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what I did. As soon as I decided, especially when I decide I want to review something, I'm like, okay, I don't need to read any previews about it.
Yep.
I'm just gonna go in as blind as I can.
Yeah.
And I did that with Watch Dogs. I had seen that initial footage. I've been doing this long enough, following games long enough that I didn't expect it to look exactly like the first footage I saw. Sure. I think it looks pretty damn good on PS4 and Xbox One and PC. Once the PC problems were a little bit smoothed out, it's like still if you try and set it into Ultra, it's still not going to run well. But I think it looks good. I think that it doesn't look as good as it might have, but it looks very good. So I wasn't like, this looks like crap. If it looked bad, that would be an entirely different situation. Yeah. If it looked like Aliens, Colonial Marines, then flip the table over.
Yeah.
So what would be the ideal time to announce a big game for the gamers?
And I like within a year. I like how 2K is doing it.
Yeah, I like the ability. I like being able to target it and be like, all right, this is when it's coming. I know that it sucks when they get delayed, but like stuff like we were talking yesterday with Uncharted 3 or Skyrim, right, where they give you a date and then make that date. That's exciting. I like that idea that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? I think you're still talking about hype machines, right, or something?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
I think I was gonna.
We're already in it.
I was going to pull out a quote, but I think it's in this email, so I will stop.
Which one?
The PS, right?
The P. Oh yeah. You can address that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this next...
This is Ryan, who's written...
Ryan's PS here on his thing is like, he's like, I hope the hype machine doesn't ruin Batman versus Superman. It is going to. Batman versus Superman is a 2-hour-long movie, maybe 2.5-hour-long movie, and we have to hear about it now for the next 2 years
I was going to say about Star Wars.
Yeah.
God, that movie is coming out December 2015. We have to hear about that movie every day now. Oh, another leaked photo. I saw the window in the Millennium Falcon today. Like, oh god!
And then they start putting out trailers, and they put the best parts in the trailers, and it's like, by the time you have to go into blackout, but we can't go into blackout for our job.
I have to report on this stuff.
I never watch movie trailers anymore because they're filled with spoilers.
Oh, they ruin the whole thing. Yeah, they tell you the whole plot to movies now.
Yep, it's a summary, not a trailer.
Yeah, it's the Cliff Notes version of the movie, basically. Also, Ryan, don't worry. Zack Snyder can ruin Batman vs Superman all on his own. This is Steve Lombardo.
What's up, Steve?
What up, Lombardo?
He wants a question. His basic question is, how can I tell if I should get a game?
Okay.
Let him explain. He says,
Thank you.
on almost every review I read, one of the top comments is one saying, I shouldn't listen to the reviewer, and I should decide for myself if I should get a game. I've heard IGN staff say that public aggregate scores, such as Metacritic user ratings, cannot be trusted. Many IGN reviewers themselves have said they believe it is impossible to give a game a definitive score. My question then is, with limited money and time, how do you think I should go about picking which games to play?
Read the review.
Yeah, read
it. Like a score, like you said, it is impossible to give a scientific, like, this is how good this game is, because like you like games, I don't. So how do we both come to a solid number that we both agree in? The number is just a summary of the opinion. And the number is kind of code. It relates to a description and a scale. Like on our scale, I gave Watch Dogs an 8.4. That correlates to a great. Like 8.0 to 8.9 correlates to a great. Mm-hmm. I'm saying this is a great game. That's what that number means. But why do I think it's great? In order to find that out, you have to read the review and my explanation of why I think it's great. When you read over my review, you might pick out some of the things that I like that you don't like.
Right.
And that. Then you can decide for yourself. Do I think I'm going to agree this is a great game? That's the only way you're going to be able to do it. You can't if you really want to be careful with your money and your time, you have to read reviews.
Yeah.
And you have to read other people's opinions and decide and like identify individual reviewers that you agree with.
Yep.
That's the best way
key,
to do it.
right? Find reviewers that you tend to, have similar opinions on.
Yep.
I always talk about it like this is like the best time to be consuming gaming content and trying to make a purchasing decision because there's so many people posting reviews. So you find out that you agree with Dan on a lot of things or he has similar interests. Great. You find out you don't, then there's plenty of other reviewers at IGN that are going to be talking about the game on podcasts or whatever. But then you find Jim Sterling, you go find all these different people at Destructoid or out at another site, and you get to be like, okay, I know that Vince likes fighters, so I can trust Vince's opinion on fighters more than I can trust reviewer X over here who's just doing it to do it. Like there's a million people out there that you can find somebody who is like you.
Yeah. Also, today every game in its entirety is up on YouTube.
Right.
Gameplay of it. That's a really good way to check out some gameplay footage.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy. It reminds me of like that. It's like a Cars.com commercial or whatever, where it's like I'm looking for. It's like all these cars driving. It's like I'm looking for a sedan, so some of the cars like disappear. And then it's like I'm looking for a black sedan, and like some of the cars, like. What are you looking for? Like, it's kind of easy to identify the games that you at least be interested in. Like, I have real sensibilities towards Japanese games. I have real sensibilities towards shooters. I love RPGs. I know I'm not going to like certain sports games. I know I'm not going to like fighting games. I mean, so like then you can narrow it down from there. Then again, you find the people that you identify with. A lot of people identify me with those Japanese games, so they trust me, or maybe they don't. And so you find those people. I mean, I've always said, and I've been very vocal about it, I think scores on reviews are destructive, and like I would love for us to get rid of them, but the fact is that most of our readers, Dan and I talk about this all the time because we sit right next to each other, like our readers want them, and so they're there, but it's really on you. The onus is on you to kind of go into the review and then dissect it and read it yourself. But the comments about like I'm going to ignore this review or this, it's like oh, like that's totally fine, that's cool. It doesn't hurt me, like it kind of hurts you. So at least if you don't agree with our review or our opinion, at least find someone out there. Certainly, someone out there is going to share your opinion on a vast majority of games, and therefore you can find someone that you can relate to.
That's what always baffles me about that comment. It's like I'm not going to listen to this review. I'm going to decide if I like this game for myself, as if I was telling them not to. Like I'm just telling you what I think about this game, man.
Whether you buy it or don't buy it. If you buy it, I hope you have fun with it. Even if I said the game's a 3, great, go have fun with that game. Sure. You spent your money. I don't wish ill will on you.
Yeah. But I understand this frustration around scores and stuff and like what do they mean and what they know. But I also don't understand the frustration when you can figure it out by reading the rubric or by reading the review itself. We don't just post the number, and then we're like.
I always actually find it very interesting to read a review that I like vehemently disagree with. Like I've read some negative reviews of Watch Dogs that it's like it's interesting to read the kinds of things that some people allow to ruin their experience.
Sure.
That for me was kind of a negligible thing.
Sure.
There's a moment in the very beginning of Watch Dogs where you're forced to try to shoot somebody. Mm-hmm. Some people found that like super objectionable. I think it was the Kotaku review was like that like set the tone for him all wrong, and he just went downhill from there. But like I thought that was actually kind of clever, just because it was one of the few. Establishing moments for Aiden's character in that whole game.
Right. Well, yeah. It's also there's a functionality to it. Right? It's teaching you the mechanics.
Yeah.
Not that you don't.
And he's supposed to be a vigilante.
Right.
Yeah.
But
he's not a good man, or at least he is a good man, but he's not supposed to be doing good things.
Well, he's like a super vengeful person, and it's like that was an expression of his anger towards this guy that was. Well, I won't.
Spoilers.
We'll go into it. But like I think
watched
it was
his dog.
No dogs in this whole game. 0 out of 10. And that, by the way, is why I don't necessarily trust aggregates of user scores.
Oh yeah, user scores.
A lot of
there are only 2 user scores.
Well, I mean,
it's a 0 or a 10.
Right. There are some thoughtful people, but they're incredibly drowned out by people who are kind of like one issue voters.
Right.
Who are either awesome or terrible, and nothing in between. And like that's just the overwhelming majority of people that vote on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to his point about Metacritic, we've said that about Metacritic user scores, which I think are useless. But I also, have an issue with Metacritic as a scoring aggregate. I think it's interesting. It's a nice idea, but I also think it's inherently unfair because, I'm happy our site gets a lot more weight than most other sites on Metacritic, which is fantastic. But at the same time, it goes back to opinions. Like if you're looking at an RPG and then you're looking for like the opinion of some of the RPG fanatic sites out there, they're not going to be weighted, and maybe that will skew the score a little down or a little up, and you won't get the right picture of it. It's a very confusing system.
Well, also, like Metacritic adapts a 5-star system to a percentage, or like less than 100-point systems to a 100-point system, and that doesn't equate. Like it's an apples to oranges kind of thing, because because, like I said, scores are not math. Like it is code for what their description of that scale is. So if you take a 2.5 out of 5 star game, it's not the same necessarily as us giving it a game of 5 out of 10 or 5.0 out of 10.
Sure.
So it doesn't work that way, and so Metacritic can be kind of a distorting factor there.
Yeah. So basically, read reviews, even if you disagree with the review. If the reviewer is good at their job and capable, they're going to be explaining why or why not they had fun with the game, and from that can tell you, whether or not you will enjoy it, even if they didn't. Right.
Right. And you can, like, sometimes you're not going to get all the information you want there, but you get a very good
there are
start.
1,000 other reviews out there. This is Robert Rogers.
Robert Rogers.
Rob.
Raj.
Rob Raj. I like that.
Rob.
Says, hey gang,
What's up?
do you guys think it would be smart for Valve/Steam to have a big conference at E3 like Sony and Microsoft? They have their new Steam machines and enough of a following that we are near the point of saying Steam is synonymous with PC gaming. And with Nintendo backing away, can Valve fill that void?
Are we near that point? I thought we were far beyond. I thought we totally were as
Yes and no.
PC gaming.
No, it's Origin.
Origin, right? Yeah,
You
my SimCity.
You still have
whatever that is.
You play.
You still have a lot of stuff that's on, like, major stuff that's on Steam. League of Legends, all Blizzard games.
True.
So I mean, it's not a monopoly.
Okay.
But
It's pretty close.
Yeah, they own like 75% of the online PC game sales business.
They're just looking to get Marvin Gardens.
But yeah, so
Monopoly.
But here's the question: like, what is gained by being at E3? Like, why go to E3 and try and shout louder than everyone else, and say, look at us, we're like next to everybody else, but we could, like, why not just go and do their own thing?
Yeah,
like
an Apple thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great comparison. I mean, Valve is basically the Apple of PC gaming. They own pretty much everything in the category. So, or they distribute it anyway. So why not just have their own announcements when they want to? And whenever Valve sends out,
couldn't you make that same, or pose that same question to Microsoft or Sony?
Absolutely. Like, and E3, like in the past at least, in the history of E3, it was not initially supposed to be a consumer event at all. Like it was supposed to be, let's show GameStop and what they should be buying.
Yeah. What's going to be on shelves this holiday season?
Right, and it just kind of escalated from there. But it's not just about consumers anyway. I personally think trying to announce something at E3 is a bad idea. Like, unless you're trying to impress investors and retail buyers. I
mean, for me, it doesn't make sense because it would almost be sinking to their level, right? Like Valve, if every time you read,
harsh.
I mean, like this is
PC
how
Master Race.
This is how I look at Valve, right? Everything they do is to the beat of their own drums. Right. They do all this their own stuff. I mean, I really do think for episode 3, it's just going to be one day you wake up and it's on Steam. And then it'll just be they threw a switch and it'll sell it crazy.
Am I still dreaming?
Valve knows all too well the value of pre-orders at this point.
True, that's true.
Yeah, there's no way they will do that.
All right, but what I'm saying is, like, it's just like, what are they? They're not. I don't think in Gabe Newell's head they're competing with Microsoft and Sony. You know what I mean? I don't think they need to be seen there doing that.
They are in that they're now putting out their own OS.
Sure.
So they are, and they're trying to take.
They are about to compete for the living room gaming
TV. Yeah.
Right. So that is putting them head-to-head competition with consoles. So I do think that they are digging in to compete with those in that arena.
Yeah.
Which is going to be interesting because it's not an apples to apples comparison between a PC and a console.
Right, but this goes back to the fact there's like 17 Steam boxes too.
Right, I mean,
that's why I still don't think they're thinking that they're competing on the same level. If they were, then why wouldn't there be one Steam box that you go and say this is what you have to buy?
Because PCs don't work that way.
It seems a little half-hearted.
That's why PC gaming sucks.
What does?
Just their whole Steam box thing or whatever. Like, it seems a little bit like you kind of want us to do this, and we don't really want to. I still think we're missing the main thing. It's the same thing with Apple. Like, Steam is anti-establishment. Valve is anti-establishment, and like they don't need E3. E3 is very conventional. E3 is very old school. E3 is very the big three. Like that's their playground. Valve doesn't need to be there, and even though they've been there, and they were at PlayStation's conference a few years ago and stuff like that. But like, they Valve is so far ahead of what everyone else is doing. We talked about this, I think, on a couple Game Scoops ago. Like, what Microsoft tried to do with Xbox One was what Valve already does. And like console gaming is so far behind, and the mentality of console gamers is so far behind in many ways that we're just not ready for it yet. So like Valve should just keep pioneering and doing cool things, and then it'll eventually trickle down the consoles anyway, inherently. I've always, I'm not a PC gamer at all. I mean, I play Civilization and a few other things, but other than that, like I don't play games on PC. But I've always really appreciated what Valve does because I think that they have great vision, and I don't think that vision is served at a place like E3, like Dan was saying. And I also think E3's importance is quickly fading. I've said it for several years. I think Gamescom is going to be the next big show, and I think
attendance-wise, it's already much, much bigger.
My 2 Gamescoms, I went 2011, 2013. Noticeable difference between those 2 shows, those 2 years, in terms of attendance, in terms of
getting bigger,
just getting huge. Even Sony's conference from one year, their conference was in a room with like 300 chairs. The next was like in this massive auditorium. Like Valve, if they wanted to start going to a show, especially a consumer-facing show where their people are, would go to Gamescom. And so I think that as E3 falls in prominence and as we spend more time focusing on Gamescom, so too will we find some of these random-ass companies, maybe like Apple and maybe like Valve at one of those places, because they don't need to speak to us because they don't care about us. They want to speak to the people that buy their stuff,
And again, I don't think Valve will ever announce a game at E3. Like that's just not their way.
Style.
Like they don't need to. They've got a direct pipeline.
You mean anymore? Didn't they announce like Left 4 Dead or Left 4 Dead 2?
I don't recall, but like I don't think they're.
2.
Yeah.
They walked out on the
so.
PlayStation. That's what he was referencing earlier when Gabe came out to talk about Portal coming to PlayStation. But that wasn't like the announcement.
That wasn't the announcement.
That was more them saying like, "Oh, we're sorry about what we said about PlayStation 3."
Right.
Figured out how to make games.
And now we figured this out, and we understand that there's money to be made.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have anything to gain by announcing something at the same time everyone else announces it. I think they've already got this direct pipeline to something like 75 million PC gamers. Every time you fire up Steam, it can pop up a thing saying, "Hey, look what you can get now." When they announce a game, they'll do it that way.
Yeah. Sure. All right, this is Kyle Dixon. He says, "Hey, GameScoop."
Hey, Kyle
Hello.
Dixon.
I've been watching GameScoop for a very long time. I often
Thanks,
find
Kyle
myself...
Dixon.
watching IGN and GameScoop for a very long time. I often find myself watching more PlayStation content than any other platform. My son frequently joins me. My question is,
Little Kyle Dixon.
with both Justin and Colin bringing future gamers into this world soon,
Really?
do you guys believe?
I love this. Go on, just finish the
I
message.
can't tell if he's trolling you or not.
No, he's not. Just go on and finish the message.
Do you guys believe that Colin will meld his child into a PlayStation fan and Justin's into an Xbox fan without knowing it?
All right, so first of all, Greg is an asshole.
I am not. This was never meant to be a thing. It wasn't meant to be a thing.
So two podcasts beyond ago, Greg was talking about how I'm having a baby.
No,
but he was talking about like a food baby because I'm fat.
No, wow, this is
All right, you know what? Go ahead and recall
This
the
is
story.
you totally melding history.
All right.
I said you had an announcement to make.
Oh, right.
And you said what? And it was that you had 70,000 Twitter followers. And then instead of that, I think I said, yeah, you're having a baby. Because you like stalled for a second. I was like, you're having a baby. You're like, oh yeah, I'm having a baby. And you hit your stomach. And then you're like, no, I got all these Twitter followers and it's cool. I want to thank everybody for their support. But like for some reason, everyone blacked out the moment of you looking at your stomach, hitting your food baby, and then saying, no, I'm talking about these followers.
No, I'm not having a baby. So that's where that comes from. There's still thousands of people out there that are very confused on this issue. I appreciate the well wishes, though.
Colin, are you going to raise your food baby to be a PlayStation?
Yes. So I think that if I had a kid, and I'm sure I'll have a kid in the next few years or whatever, I mean, I think they're going to be into what I'm into. I mean, it's just going to be the way it is. You know, like it's not going to be relegated only into games. You know, it's going to be relegated to everything. So like, then they'll make up their own mind as they get older about what they want. But of course, they're going to be influenced if Dad's playing PlayStation 4, you know, instead of taking care of me for years and all this kind of stuff, and he's reading the Drudge Report. Then obviously, like these are the kinds of things that that kid's going to be into. I'm very much my dad's son.
Why does Daddy love the PS4 more than me?
Like I think so. Yeah, I think that yes. I think that's possible. I am my father's son, like in many ways. So like
I am too, but it's not a guarantee. Like my dad loves music, and I love music. I get that from him. My dad also loves football, and I did not. gain that love for football.
My dad's a heavy equipment operator. On the weekends, he would go outside and be in the yard and do. And none of that worked. None of that stuck for me. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's more the concern. If you're reading the Drudge Report all the time, playing that PlayStation 4 all the time,
what if he doesn't?
This food baby is going to go the opposite direction.
It's possible.
I'll be on HuffPo all day.
Yeah, I mean, like my father was a firefighter. Obviously, I'm not a firefighter. I'm not that much of a man to be a firefighter. My dad was really into cars. I don't even like driving cars. My dad, is into building things, using his hands. I'm not into that. But in terms of politics, in terms of my dad, I'm totally responsible for getting me into music and like all of those kinds of things. So, yeah, in many ways, the apple didn't fall far from the tree in some respects. In some respects, I'm like my mom. So, I think it's possible. But I mean, I think about my brother. My older brother is the reason that I play games. He's 11 years older than me, and we talk about him a lot on Podcast Beyond. And he was a Nintendo kid. He was an NES guy, and so I was an NES guy, and he was a Super Nintendo guy, so I was a Super Nintendo guy. And so I think it's about like that kind of influence. And then by the time he went to PlayStation, well, so did I.
Yeah.
And I look at it a lot like a religion. Like you're raised in a Catholic house, you're probably going to be Catholic, unless you rebel. Unless,
that happens to some kids too, right?
Yeah, and like I was raised in a Catholic house. I am not Catholic. It was not a very strongly Catholic house, but I'm not Catholic. So, it's just. Like you're raised around like your role models are your parents, and your parents are playing us on a certain thing. You're going to play with them. You're going to have memories, fond memories of playing. Platform exclusive sometimes with your parents. You're going to get used to that controller.
Yeah.
You'll just have that muscle memory, and that's hard to break. Like. Sure, you can go over to a friend's house and play on a different console, and maybe you'll like those games more. Maybe you'll just have an affinity for those.
But you'll go, this is in 720p, isn't it? Hideous.
But you are then having to it's kind of an uphill battle. It's an override of that thing that's familiar to you. So like what you're raised around is probably what you're going to like more, but not necessarily.
What?
I just love the fact that this is still a thing with him having a baby. I didn't do it. I like how you throw me under the bus. You can go watch the tape. It's an innocent comment that gets
Put the tape in my VCR.
Yeah.
We'll see what.
Adjust the tracking.
Yeah.
Also, it needs to be pointed out that if whatever Justin Davis does this baby he's raised, it's going to be a mobile kid. It's not going to be an Xbox kid. He's going to play Hearthstone all the time.
Poor baby.
They've been on blackout.
Threes.
I hope
Hearthstone is awesome.
Give him a controller. Give that baby a controller, for God's sake.
Ever play some FTL?
Give him a Vita. Greg, sneak a Vita in there.
in the crib.
In that crib, yeah.
You want to play Blaze Blue?
Greg doesn't want kids.
No.
But Dan and Colin, you're open to the idea of maybe having kids someday.
My girlfriend definitely wants kids, so yeah.
So is it important to you that your kid likes games?
Well, it would be nice to have a hobby that we share.
Sure.
But I'm not going to throw a fit if they don't like games.
You're not going to be the one throwing.
You throw a temper tantrum, you're just on the ground.
Yeah, to me it's not important. I mean, I would like to be able to bond with my child. I would preferably actually like to bond more with him on politics or history than games. But I assume, by the act of being around me for 18 years, that kid is going to like video games. But who the hell knows?
And I think the real thing is that in 10, 15 years, like games may not resemble what they resemble today. We might not be into what games will become 15 years from now. Sure. So who's to say? That's a little bit far future for me.
But we'll always have the games that we have now and that we grew up with, right? So
hopefully, yeah.
I totally want to introduce my children to all that stuff.
I mean, dude, I saw that on the horizon, like what Dan's saying, like with like when everyone's like mobile gaming's gonna fucking murder console gaming and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, oh Jesus, I don't want to play on my phone. Like, I really thought I was like looking down down at a horizon where I'm like, I don't want to play games, because I don't want to play on these little screens. I don't want to play on a touch screen. I want to do all these things, and then thankfully they were wrong. But maybe we'll actually look down the barrel of that one day in the future where we're like, I don't know, man, like this is not what I got into games for, But that day is not yet.
Candy Crush makes more money than all Nintendo games combined.
I saw that. That's pretty crazy, man. King's killing. It's not to say you can't enjoy games on that platform. It's not to say there aren't good games on those platforms. It's just like I like playing with a controller. I need that tactile kind of analog stick button experience. That's what I want.
Whereas I'm very much looking forward to like an Oculus Rift style kind of thing where it's no controller in your hand but motion controlled in a way that actually works. But yeah.
Looking forward to watching you play that. Yeah. That'll be my game.
YouTube will really enjoy that, I'm sure.
This is Aaron Ross. He has a solution for the next-gen/current-gen confusion.
Mainly.
He says people tend to be constantly confused by the terms next-gen, current-gen, last-gen, as they're all relative terms. After all, the vast majority of gamers don't yet have a PS4 or Xbox One, thus their status as current-gen consoles is confusing. This might be solved by referring to console generations by their generation number as opposed to their current status. Apparently, the NES is counted as being the third console generation, meaning that the PS2 is the sixth, the PS3 is part of the seventh, PS4 is the eighth. This gives us an absolute way to differentiate which generation we're talking about, and I think it should really help clarify gaming conversations.
Which generation is the Wii U?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is a common question. What's the first generation? Magnavox Odyssey, and then
I think that's
2600.
The problem with this is that if the PS4, Xbox One are the eighth generation, that means the eighth generation has begun, and it's the current generation.
Yeah,
and PS3 and Xbox 360 is last generation.
I just also don't ascribe to these numbers.
Well, I mean, it's
I'm not arguing the numbers now.
you don't want to put another number on something.
It's just too confusing, right? Like what is Dreamcast came out in limbo, Wii U came out in limbo. It just doesn't make everyone always argues these console generation numbers. They don't make sense. I mean, I'm sorry, they don't make sense.
I think you're right. Yeah.
It should be about. To me, it should be actually about relative power. And what games can appear on, could this console run both of these games, or that's why Wii U is to me everyone's it's a Gen 8 game or Gen 8 system, but I'm it's
but then really you get cross generation games like Watch Dogs that run on both, just at different quality levels.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, I've just started referring to them as old gen and new gen, which is also a relative term, but it's true. Like you say, an old generation console. I guess the Wii U is again kind of an outlier there, but.
Old gen could be PS2, PS1, right?
That's older
gen.
The oldest gen.
Right. I mean, because this is the new generation of consoles, the Xbox One and PS4. The Xbox 360 and PS3 are the old generation. So and it's just like generations of people.
Yes.
My parents are so last gen.
Well, yeah, I mean, they are.
Well, they are an older generation.
But I'm about to be last gen, too.
The moment you were born, they became last gen. And that's the same way with consoles for me. Sorry, I know the vast majority of gamers don't yet have a PS1 or Xbox One, but if they're playing on 360, they're playing a last gen console.
Get over it.
Not,
the kids, the ones who are offended.
Are they offended?
Yeah. That's why this is where it all comes from. That I don't have a PS4, so my thing is still current gen. They don't want to admit they're behind the times. That's where this comes from. Get the fuck over it. Get a goddamn job.
So in their mind, the new generation begins when they buy the new console. Right.
Then
it's all up to them.
Yeah, the next gen is
all about them.
This is just like, I can't afford this game, so I'm going to pirate it. I've done everything in my power to get this game or this console.
It's true. How are we doing on time there, Colin? What time is it?
It is
4:30.
12:53.
12:53. Okay, we can tackle this last topic. It's about indie games, and it comes from James Cooksey.
That's a good name.
Quality.
My dude James.
I'm Cooksey for Cooksey Puffs.
Maybe it's pronounced Cooksey. Who knows? But Cooksey sounds like it'd be more fun to say.
He's a cut up, I bet.
It says, "Hi, Damon and the Scoop crew.
Most depressed guy we've ever met.
I recently purchased a PS4, a current gen console, and I've been downloading the free PlayStation Plus games over the past 6 months. Thanks for the tip, Greg.
That's what I do.
I bought the Infamous bundle, and I also purchased Killzone Shadowfall and FIFA 14. Haven't put the controller down since it arrived. I put a decent... What's the matter?
he's all overgrown.
He's in the shower.
His clothes are disgusting.
I've put a decent number of hours into each of the games I have for the system. My friends, whom themselves invest a lot of time and money into gaming, arrived back from uni this week and came straight round to experience the PS4. I showed them Infamous and Killzone, and they loved them. I then went to show them the 6 indie games I have through PlayStation Plus. The second I mentioned the word indie, my friends instantly became disinterested and only cared about the 3 AAA games I had. Mercenary Kings, Outlast, Stick It to the Man, Don't Starve, Dead Nation, and Resogun are all really good games, but due to my friends' opinions regarding indie games, they will never experience them.
Your friends are dumb.
Yeah, it's not your problem. It's not your problem.
My group of friends can't be the only people who have this view.
No, they're not.
Given that indie games now make up a significant percentage of the video game industry, is it time to start promoting the games in a different way? Is it time to retire the word indie?
Maybe. I mean, it's like indie music. Well, you can relate indie rock or indie music. Like, that's lost all meaning, you know? Because, like, just completely doesn't even mean anything anymore. There's indie labels. That doesn't even make any sense. You know what I mean?
Like labels that are owned by me.
Right, exactly. An indie label signs an artist to a $3 million contract and a year tour and 2 albums. It's like, okay, that's really not indie.
It doesn't really mean anything for games either.
No, it just means that you have a publisher. Theoretically.
Right.
But even some indie games do have a publisher, right? So it's
right. Is Valve an indie developer? I mean, they are their own publisher. That doesn't really make any sense.
But in terms, again, this is where PC gamers are ahead of the curve with console gamers, and console gamers need to catch up quickly on this because they're not going to have much of a choice in a few years. Indie games aren't only significant in terms of number; they're actually significant in terms of being better than many of the $60 games that we buy. Most of them. Resogun is still. I will still say it. I don't care who gets mad at me. Resogun is still PlayStation 4's best game. And
you keep forgetting the DC Universe Online came out.
Yeah, I haven't forgotten. And I never understood the eagerness to to justify the console and to justify my time, I need to go spend $60 on a game. When you can buy 6 great games for $60 that are like some of those games he mentioned. Don't Starve is awesome. Don't Starve is a great game. Stick It to the Man, that's a really fun game. Mercenary Kings is awesome. That's a great game. And these games are cheaper and better than a lot of the $60 games you're going to go and buy. I'd much rather play Child of Light, which is not, which people consider an indie game because it's a downloadable $10 or $15 game, which is really what that term means.
Made by Ubisoft.
But that doesn't matter, because this is really what people are looking at.
Don't bring logic to this argument, Dan. The argument against indie makes no sense.
It's really more a skew against downloadable, cheaper games because they think the quality is not going to be as high. But I would dispute that, and just completely dispute that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of my favorite games are smaller games. But I think that in this context, these guys came over to see the PS4. They don't want to see games that you could have played on the previous generation of consoles.
I get that. Yeah, you have a new console.
Right.
You want to see what it can do. You've got this big HD TV. You've got your home theater system. You want to have a big, impressive cinematic experience. Just like, if you want to try out your new Blu-ray player, you want to put on Transformers maybe or Lord of the Rings instead of, I don't know, what's a...
The Breakfast Club.
Sure.
But all those indie games could easily, some of them maybe even could easily exist on the previous generation of consoles. So when I go over and it's like, show me what the PS4 can do. So let's see if I want to buy one. I don't, it's like, it does all the things that the console you already have. I think that context is not a great way to introduce somebody to an indie game.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but
in this case.
Yeah, but Resogun can't run on anything but a PlayStation 4. It could probably run on an Xbox One.
It absolutely could run on any system. That gameplay could happen anywhere.
Yeah, but they couldn't do the visual, They couldn't. I mean, that couldn't run on a PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I would argue that game does show off the PS4.
And I would argue that game shows off the PS4 just as well as Killzone or Infamous. I think maybe even better because again, it's the particles that matter in that particular game and what's going on the screen as opposed to the visual fidelity of the environment or whatever. But the indie game bigotry that I'm gonna term it,
it's true,
is insane to me. Just because you're starving yourself of amazing games, that are cheap and readily accessible, and I don't get it. I want to play the game that's going to be fun, whether it's on Vita, whether it's on PS4, whether it's on PC, whatever, Xbox One, wherever it is.
Unless it's on iPad, apparently.
No, not on iPad. Not on iPad, unless you can attach a controller to it. But even on iPad, I spend a lot of time this summer with Plants vs. Zombies 2 because I adore that game. But you just start it's just totally artificial way to starve yourself of great content, especially because AAA games are few and far between. If you're justifying your console purchase like PS4 on exclusives, you're going to be waiting a long time for some exclusives that we have Killzone, we have Infamous, and then you're going to have Drive Club in the order later and Uncharted at some point. What are you going to fill in that time with? Fill in that time with some of these awesome indie games, man. Mercenary Kings is not only a great game. That game to platinum that game would take you 100 hours. And you spent $15 on it. That's pretty awesome. Rainbow Moon's another great example. It's a Vita and PS3 game, an RPG that's just as meaty as a Square Enix RPG. From the days of yore. Why do you need to pay $60?
A good game is a good game. It's a good game.
That's exactly right.
Right. The best movie I've seen this year isn't Godzilla or X-Men or Captain America or any of those. It's The Raid 2, which is an awesome action movie, and it's a low-budget movie compared to those huge blockbuster movies.
But I guess to address his question, with this particular group of friends that doesn't like the word indie, maybe with those guys, don't call them indie games and say, hey, this is a really cool game. You don't
Yeah, maybe,
really need
yeah.
to classify it.
Just lie.
Yeah, maybe just don't say.
Yeah, a game's a game, right?
Yeah, it's like,
A game's a game.
here's a great side scroller, here's a great shooter, here's a great, whatever.
Yeah. You disagree?
No, same. Agree.
One more email this week. This is from Lauren. He says, "Hey, Game Soup, just discovered the show and I love it.
Where you been?
Growing. He just got internet.
8 years?
Growing up, and even now, I've never had a good gamer name. My friends growing up had names like T-Wolf and Amish Broom Fight.
That's an pretty awesome name. That sounds like a punk band from Boston.
Mine has always just been Lauren.
It's funny when he says it.
Could you please give me a gamer name that will strike fear and also be epic at the same time?"
Lovin' Lauren.
Love and Lauren's actually pretty good. I was going to say, we don't really have enough information about him to give him a good gamer name. Although Love and Lauren's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I was going to open it up to the Game Soup audience. If they had any suggestions for Lauren.
Torn up lore what?
Lore? Torn up lore what?
That's fantastic, Greg.
Tore up lore up.
Lord.
The name we always go back to in the IGN office is BongBro420, but I'm sure that's
Bongbro.
taken at this point.
Lauren Stash?
Lauren Stash is actually good too. You see, you're good at this.
Yeah. This is a side job.
Yeah. Maybe you're in the wrong profession. You really should be.
Forlorn.
Forlorn?
There you go.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. Yeah, I was trying to think of what the puns could be.
Lauren, Loren, right?
Lorin.
L-I-N, I know. Okay.
Lauren Cloth.
That's good.
Yeah, now I'm starting to think, man, why do you need us? There's lots of good possibilities for your name.
I can relate to him just in that I never bothered to make a cool handle.
Yeah.
It was just always my name or whatever.
Yeah, I've always just gone. I never put too much thought.
Although now these last few years I'm getting, is your name really Moriarty? You're a Sherlock Holmes fan? I'm like,
Yes.
it's fucking movies, man. And this TV show. Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, if the viewers, listeners have any good suggestions, let us know. Maybe we'll share them on a future episode. I think that's all the scoops we have for this week. Yeah, do you want to share with the class before we leave?
Spice Nice Lauren. Doesn't have to, man. It's a gamer tag.
Anyway, we're going to be at E3 next week. Make sure you tune in Monday, June 9th, beginning at 9 a.m. Pacific, all day long. We're going to be streaming all the conferences with pre- and post shows, and then we're going to be live streaming all the rest of the week, bringing all of the big game demos directly to you. Live
Some
streaming.
indie games too.
Yes, there are
Don't get mad.
indie games too. Don't use that time to step away. Go for a bathroom break. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Colin. My name is Damon. This is IGN Game Scoop, and we're out.